All right, so I watched the 5th episode of Loki called Journey into Mystery, which, of course, is a tribute to the anthology comic book series that introduced Marvel's version of Thor and eventually all the Norse gods and whatnot. And it appears, for the most part, and I can probably chalk this up to the other shows as well, is that the best part are the nods and Easter eggs. More times than not, don't go anywhere. But this one easily has to be the best of the batch, and this is probably the best show of the series because it's saved by Richard E. Grant, who, for all intents and purposes, is the real Loki. You know, I mean, he looks like him and everything. Yeah, sure, a little old, but Richard E. Grant's just a treat, and he does a great job here. And with Easter eggs and stuff, there's a few things here and there. They introduced the boy version of Loki, which he claims he killed Thor. Later on, you can see there's a Mjolnir sitting around in the rubble. And even what I couldn't quite catch it. It was too fast, and I didn't bother to back it up. But that there's a Thor in a jar, and I couldn't tell if was that the frog Thor or if it's just a miniature Thor because it seems to be screaming while he's in. And then, but that's all it's there for. Nothing comes of it. So the big reveal was that once you get pruned, you actually go to this place that's apparently beyond the end of time, which is getting closer to sounding like Limbo. So it's almost impossible that it won't be Kang the Conqueror being the villain behind all of this, or Immortus, or Ramatut, but I think it's going to be Kang, because, you see, Kang the Conqueror and Ramatut and Immortus are all the same person. Yes, they are. But the idea that Ravonna Renslayer doesn't know this is a bit strange in that, because if she's the same Ravonna from the comics, then, she's... Immortus is a gal pal, but more on that later. So, yeah, Richard E. Grant does a good performance here, and there's even a scene where, which I kind of wish it would have had him, where he was describing more of what really happened with the Infinity War in the comics and all that, because he looks like the real Loki. They play it up as silly. They just put him in the tights and all that, like it's just a silly costume from a Halloween costume party or whatever. But still, it's in keeping with that Loki, and it would have been cool if he was describing that. But instead, he kind of just describes what becomes of Loki in the MCU, except he comes up with a way to survive. And he said, "Well, I just projected a false image of myself, and Thanos killed that, and then I hid." And escaped and, was living in exile, basically, until he decided he wanted to return and seek out Thor because he missed him and all this stuff. And that plays in to a lot of this back and forth between Loki and Thor. And when it comes down to it, when either one might die, the other works to prevent it, especially Thor because he's the hero, But in the end, somewhere in there, Loki does actually care and love Thor. But he's just powerfully jealous of him. And that's in keeping with some of the old myths. I mean, sometimes Loki helped Thor and stuff like that in those old stories and that kind of thing. So anyway, but it's still, I thought it was kind of a missed opportunity to just go ahead and say, yeah, this is the what is it, the 616 Loki, Yeah, and of course he's much older here. I guess after he lived in exile, what his immortality was failing. I don't know. However you want to put it, why he's in that appearance. Of course, he can make himself look like whatever he wants, but yeah, that's the definitive Loki right there. And so just for that alone, it's a good episode. The rest of it is just torn down by the usual slap job crap that they do. Female Loki is the best ever. She is amazing. She's wonderful. Tom Hiddleston's in love with her because she is him. And then it's funny and creepy enough to where, yeah, okay, I'll give him that one. But the performance between the two, enough already. And again, this is one of those things where they could have just said some time had passed and there was some buildup. The only saving grace is Loki's narcissism, which this whole idea that he's not the same man he used to be and he's learned a lot and he's changed. It looks like that's how they're going to end it if he survives this and she becomes the Loki of the MCU going forward. Probably, I don't know. But that this is what changes him into a heroic man, I don't think so. You didn't do enough there to get there with all of this. So, what have you. But, yeah, it's just, she's the bestest ever. She's able to defeat the TVA when she's a little girl. Plus, the whole thing about her being a little girl just destroys the whole idea that she's a Loki anymore. She certainly has nothing in common with any of the others because she hasn't lived out an adult life as that person. She got abducted as a child. She's completely different. And she's been working and fighting the TVA. All of this she did by teaching herself. Because she's the best. They Mary sued her, and they keep doing that to these characters. And he says, I want a powerful female character. Okay, you got to give her the story for it. They didn't. It's bizarre because it's like, no, I really hate women and I just wanted to tear them down. Well, you're doing it. That's, there's no respect for these female characters. So, yeah, whatever. And that stuff is very much there, even though they almost had some elements here that could have been pretty interesting and cool. Same with WandaVision, but they can't help themselves. They gotta spoil the pot, So yeah, it's gonna be Kang the Conqueror. I don't know if they're gonna gender swap Kang. I guess race swap, but I don't know, whatever. I mean, and that's the weird thing. Making all these Lokis heroic and whatnot. It's one thing for the Richard E. Grant Loki to be at the end of his life anyway, but they're not. These are all villains. They do terrible things. And if you're going to make a female Loki or Sylvie the new Loki, she's not going to be Loki. She's not going to be mischievous. There's nothing mischievous about her. I mean, she's causing trouble for this a group that she has a reason to hate, for what they did to her as a child. But, and the end result is she would have just ended up with the other Lokis in this weird world being chased by the giant smoke monster. Yeah, that's... yeah, it's a bigger smoke monster, but it's still a smoke monster. But it has some cool visuals. So, yeah, that's it. Richard E. Grant saved the show, one episode. And, spoiler, he's dead now. The smoke monster got him. Unless you go to another universe, maybe he went, but I mean, every time the smoke monster was killing people, it looked like they all aged and, rotted away, So after Loki is killed, his helmet's sitting there and it's all rusted and old and shit, So, So I guess you can't say that he teleported somewhere else. However, his description of how Endgame ended for his version of Loki when he was dealing with Thanos is a means by which this Loki could change time to where he survived. And what you saw was not a dead Loki, but rather a facsimile thereof. And the real Loki was hiding in the debris of the destroyed ship. And so that's a means by which he could return within the current timeline of the MCU and surprise Thor and all that. But I doubt it. I think they're probably, which would be a cool thing to do. They wrote it right there. It's right there for them. And but all they want to do is female Loki is the bestest ever, and which they've already done. So even if they kill her off, they've done it. But I'm guessing she becomes the new Loki, and that's it for Tom Hiddleston as Loki. So, even though it's right there in front of them how to do some cool stories going forward, but I don't know. They can't seem to help themselves. So anyway, there we go. We finally got to meet the real Loki, thanks to the great Richard E. Grant, who should have been a Doctor Who. Yeah, I know, he kind of was. It was just a cartoon, and then the other one was just a parody. Yeah, he became the Great Intelligence, but I think he would have made a really good Doctor Who. Of course, so would Hiddleston, but wouldn't want to see that now. If you think Loki's bad, good Lord, imagine those guys being forced to do the crap that they put out and call it Doctor Who today. Oof, oof. Oh, wow. Anyway, there we go. One more episode left. I'm sure it'll fix everything and resolve the whole deal, and we'll think, oh my God, this thing was brilliant. Nah. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness. So many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.